I think that the short answer is that hunting is probably not absolutely necessary to sustain conservation in South Africa, but I think it forms a spoke in the wheel of conservation. And I think there are a huge number, of South Africans that benefit enormously from the hunting industry, and that's not just individuals who own properties. There are a large number of people who are employed by the hunting industry to work on safari farms and so on. So I think there's a huge number of people that benefit from it. I also think that while hunting institutions may introduce particular species onto their properties that may not have necessarily occurred in the area, they are doing something that is quite important overall for conservation, and that is taking up space that would potentially otherwise be encroached by people. So we're having relatively large sections or portions of land in South Africa being safeguarded, if you will, from an increasing human population that could potentially just take over a lot of the green space and space that is available for conservation. So while they might be bringing in species that may not have occurred in the area and removing animals, which is something that a lot of people don't agree with, and that's fine, because that's a philosophical and sort of social disagreement. That's absolutely fine if you disagree with that approach. But I think inadvertently they're doing or in some cases not inadvertently, but they're doing quite a good job at effectively conserving other parts of ecosystems. So large tracts of intact land are being set aside. So apart from the species that are being hunted, which are essentially mainly large mammals, reptiles are getting a respite from people who may be vindictive against them. Snakes in particular have got a bad reputation, and if they're close to people they are killed, so they are removed. Whereas if you've got hunting farms set aside, those animals are effectively left alone. You've got birds that have more nesting sites, and so the cascade effect, I think, is something that is very important to consider. That while morally we may not agree with the act of hunting another animal, I think that in terms of the bigger picture, the bigger conservation picture, I think that hunting agencies, hunting individuals, safari companies play an important role in the overall conservation of species and ecosystems in South Africa. And while it might be tough to see the actual financial benefits of that going back, so when a hunt is sold for a lion, is there a portion of those funds that go into conservation of lions or research into lion populations or something like that? That is sometimes not very clear and may not always be happening, but you do have a lot of other people benefiting from these enterprises, and who would, in a South African context, people who wouldn't have a job otherwise or an income for their families. So I think there is an important role for hunting. I think there will always be a very strong, very emotional debate and very polarized opinions about whether hunting is good or bad. But overall, I think from a conservation perspective and stepping back, however you feel, I think there is a role for it in conservation of biodiversity in South Africa.